Kid Electrolux asks Gribbs, do you plug your ass into the mains before you do these videos? I would have guessed a warthog in the box. Morning and welcome to the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour, where I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. I will answer any question, including this one from Kid Electrolux. I do not plug my ass into the mains before I do these videos. I don't really know. Am I not millennial enough to know what that means? I mean, is it some kind of phrase? This is 2019. Like, I don't know. It's like, well, hell yeah, I plug my ass into the mains. Or like, no, man, I don't plug my ass into the mains. It reminds me of middle school where people would come up with some new phrase that meant you're gay. And like, anytime someone said it, like, oh, I got my history book out of my locker. You're gay. Typing Piper says Jeeps are trash. Shut your commie mouth, Typing Piper. Jeeps are an all-American masterpiece of engineering. I just can't even make a video anymore. I can't even, I got one person asking me if I plug my ass into things and one person saying this heresy about Jeeps. I've never owned a Jeep, but I've always wanted to. You can't buy happiness, but you can buy a Jeep, and I've never seen a sad person driving a Jeep. So it's been a week, right? It's been a rough. I say it every week. Every week I'm like, it's been a rough week. My life is so horrible. No, I mean it's been a good week, but there were some stressors that were unique to this week, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to set up the story I'm getting ready to tell you about this week. My wife was out of state dealing with a death in the family, and which meant that I was single parenting all week. And man, do I have a lot of respect for single parents out there. It was a rough week, yeah. Stop recording, stop. When my ship comes in, I'm gonna get a better video studio so you guys can see my face in high def and I won't have all these awkward cuts. Anyway, the other thing that happened this week happened yesterday when I was getting ready for my big fishing trip. The day after, I shot a big wedding and helped a friend move, and I was like trying to get my meditation done in the beginning of the day, just like get it out of the way. And I sat there and I meditated, and then I stretched, and something happened in my back. Something terrible. So you may notice that I am moving without my usual grace in this video. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's getting better. I went fishing last night. It's not that bad, because that's what you do, right? When you hurt your back, especially your upper back and your right shoulder, you go sling a fly rod around. Anyway, thank you for all of your watch time this week with the pinhole stuff and the Yabo stuff, and we're doing good. The channel's going well, and I really appreciate you checking in. So, man, things are gonna ramp up with the photography stuff here in the next little bit. Probably in a couple of weeks is when you'll start seeing videos. We got in deep. But that's for later. For now, Norbo writes in and says, my main regret in life involves a girl in music school with perfect pitch. Youth is wasted on the young. Unfortunately, she died from a brain aneurysm at 36. Norbo, I was all set up to be like, okay, tell us the story. Like, I really want to know about your torrid affair with the girl with perfect pitch. And then you drop the brain aneurysm bomb on us. Like, come on, man. Come on, this was going to be really interesting. Anyway, he says, I loved seeing your homemade camera. My pinhole camera is not homemade. I bought it, like the American that I am, from Hong Kong, actually. And yeah, I would love to claim that I made that one. I have made them in the past, but they've never really been good. I saw an E6 kit at St. Vinny's last week. Well, E6 is for suckers. Derek Tant asks Gribbs, what is The Shining all about? Well, Derek, The Shining is a romantic comedy about two twin girls trying to bring their parents back together after a broken marriage. So they take them to this nice resort, the Overlook Hotel, and they haunt them in the hallway. I'm just kidding. They haunt them in the elevator with all the blood and stuff. I never liked that elevator scene. There was just something about, why does, I'm gonna watch it. Hang on. I don't get why the blood, ugh, God, I don't get why the blood comes out of the side of the elevator. I've never understood that. Why don't the doors open and splash blood down? That would make so much more sense. To answer your question, by the way, one more story. I once worked in an office, and this office was okay. So I once worked in a cult. It was the worst job I've ever had, and also one of the best jobs I've ever had. But it was great until I realized the entire office was a cult, and the owner of the business had a personality disorder, and like if you ever questioned. Anyway, there was some serious psychological stuff going on in this office. Is all I'll say. We'll make this shorter than it should be. But the day that I resigned, sort of, the day that I did what I can't, for legal reasons, I can't go into what actually happened. Okay, the day that I left the business, I walked up the stairs into the office. There was this nice lobby in a downtown office space. And the night before, it was close to Halloween, somebody had a projector, and there had been like an office party that I didn't go to because everyone was insane. But from from this party, they had a projector, and they were projecting The Shining onto the wall. And it's in silence. It was just, because everyone was working, but like in the lobby, there was this huge wall, and it was The Shining. And as I walked up the stairs, there was this ornate staircase into the lobby, and I walked up the stairs, and I like looked to my right, and there was Jack Nicholson walking up the stairs with an axe. And I thought, yeah, it's time to leave this job. And I think that's actually a pretty good description of what The Shining is about. It's about the ways that we can create an isolated reality for ourselves. And abuse others within that reality. It's a journey into basically an abuser's mind. And that's what I would have said from memory. And then I Googled what is The Shining all about, and there's a great thread on Reddit that talks about The Shining being about cycles of abuse and how they can proceed from generation to generation, and that the reality that we think we're stuck in might not even be real at all. So I'm going to put a link to this. I'm never going to do that, but I'm going to try to remember to put a link to that down below. So Derek, you can read for your edification. Can you read? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. Quiet Storm asks Gribbs, "Life is vapor," quoting from last week's Antisocial. What is the meaning of life? Did you start smoking a pipe as a consequence of realizing that there is no meaning at all? Well, Quiet Storm, I believe there is meaning to life, but that meaning is largely unknowable. And so you can't really, it's not like I could say, well, the meaning of life is to go to the North Pole. It's not something like that. There's not a common goal that we can all that would work for every person. Maybe the meaning of my life is to go to the North Pole, but I can't say that's also the meaning of your life. Underneath all of that, I think we have the question wrong. Like, we're searching for meaning as if the meaning could be applied to us, like as if there is some objective external meaning that if once we just discover it, then we'll know, right? And I think meaning is a human concept and not a concept of the source, to use a generic, vague, religiously unoffensive term. The source of creation might not mean things the way that we mean things. You know what I mean? But I was also having a conversation the other day with a friend who is a shrink, psychotherapist, and she was saying that she is trying to lead her patients away from the pursuit of happiness and toward the pursuit of meaning. Because happiness is like, what the hell is happiness? You know, some days you're not going to be happy. Some days you are. Does that mean you're not a happy person? I don't know. So this word happiness really, it's not a great like benchmark for us. But finding meaning is, because you know when you found meaning, like making pipe videos. If that's a meaning to you and you're enjoying it, that's all you need. So to answer the second part of your question, did you start smoking a pipe as a consequence of realizing that there is no meaning at all? Yeah, you could say that. Heavy hitters this week. Lutrasaurus says, ask Gribbs, when reading Beowulf, do you prefer to read it in the original Old English, or do you prefer a modern English translation? Do you side with the theory that it was a compilation from several authors, or do you side with Professor Tolkien in the single author viewpoint? Well, the worst book that I've ever read, no, that's not true. The worst book I've ever read was the last Twilight book. That was definitely. And then I think hot on the heels of that, Stephen King's The Dome. But that's not being objective. That actually wasn't the worst, not anywhere near the worst book. But it was the worst Stephen King book, and my expectations for Stephen King had been so inflated that it really hurt. Oh, I threw that book across the room and didn't like read the last few pages when I got to the end. The third worst book that I've ever read was Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. And after reading that book, I decided I was never, ever again going to read anything that was assigned to me by that particular teacher. And that included Beowulf. That particular teacher also said that none of us could pass a test on any of her assignments by just reading the Cliff Notes. She said that she wrote her tests specifically to leave out stuff from the Cliff Notes, or to test on stuff that wasn't in the Cliff Notes. Well, that's not true, because I made an A on that test. But I did read probably a few pages of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is basically like the Middle Eastern Beowulf. I think that both of these epics, just from what I know, frankly, of Scripture, I would side with the theory that it's several authors, and that anything read in Old English sounds more authoritative. Peter McPherson, by the way, thank you for your comment on the Father's House video. Ask Gribbs, who is Amy Mack? You refer to her often and talk about her videos. Is she a make-believe friend? Amy Mack was YouTube royalty. And she started making pipe videos around the time that I did. We were sort of in the same class, if you will. And then she took a sabbatical, and now she's back as that pipe woman. And I believe she responded to your comment. So Amy Mack is that pipe woman in the same way that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Professor Walker, what about gang stalking and planting RFID devices to control your mind? We're talking about chemtrails. And then I believe someone responded to him, I think it might have been Typing Piper, and said, why would we need RFID devices to control our minds? We already have phones. Did I introduce my pipe? I can't remember if I did the housekeeping. Anyway, I'm smoking Northwoods in my Missouri Meerschaum Diplomat Apple, which is not really coloring, y'all. It's really not. We might have to get aggressive. Okay, so yeah, like, why do we need? It's more about okay. So the government controlling all of us. What exactly are they controlling us for? Because the American population doesn't really seem interested in affecting change. You know, why control people that just want to play Pokemon Go and shop at Walmart? They don't need controlling, and that's the vast majority. I mean, look at voting statistics. That's the vast majority of American people. That's the reason I don't believe in like chemtrails and RFID conspiracies, is just why it's a lot of work to tame an already tamed populace. Quaker Piper, ask Gribbs, could you please elaborate on the topic of smoking, supplementing romantic rivalry and essentialism, and deciding self-centered apathy, Gribbly, and in the flock? Apparently Quaker Piper used a topic generator to come up with these, which is cool because that's basically how I wrote all my papers on Beowulf and Gilgamesh. But as you know, I will answer any question. I am compelled to answer any and every question that anyone posts. I'll answer any question, is what I'm trying to say. So, Quaker Piper says, could you please elaborate on the topic of blah, 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 blah? No. Typing Piper says, art teachers are artists who don't have the balls to follow their passion. You said it, not me. Typing Piper also asked, if the earth is flat, why use chemtrails when you could just march people off the edge? Which is a very good point. But then, Goatman Stevie says, actually the earth is square, hence the expression, the four corners of the earth. I'm going to take issue with both of these, right? Number one, the earth is not flat. And anyone who has the sense to know that Jeeps are awesome would know that the earth is a sphere. However, Goatman Stevie, if the earth was a square, and by square I assume you mean cube, because, well, if it was a square, it would be flat, right? So actually the earth is square, so I'm assuming you're meaning that the earth is a cube. Then there would not be four corners. Cubes have 8 corners. Over a pipe, asked Gribbs, what is the difference between a hammerhead trout bass and a hammerhead bass trout? Well, red on black, good for Jack. Leaves of 3, let it be. A follow-up, what type of flies work best for them? Well, every time I've ever caught a hammerhead trout bass, it was on a black woolly bugger. But every time I've ever caught a hammerhead bass trout, it was on an olive woolly bugger. How do they know? Kevin Behringer thought it would be funny to post a disc golf YouTube channel and say, shouldn't this be your new favorite channel? No! No, not at all. Disc golf is an abomination, should not be played by real Americans. By the way, hang on a second, hang on. Speaking of sports and things un-American, I'm sure you know that the U.S. women's team has won the soccer game. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I found this headline from Deadspin. Sports news without access, favor, or discretion. Anyway, I don't know anything about soccer or sports or whatever, but this is the best headline ever. Purple-haired lesbian goddess flattens France like a crepe. A 30-06 asked Gribbs, what happened to the camping trip that you were soliciting volunteers for darkness protection? Well, it's not really a darkness protection because as a level 50 shaman, I can simply turn it back to day. I just don't want to, I don't want to play in cheat mode. So it's more company while I endure the survival single player experience of camping in the woods. And to answer your question, I'm a total wuss, and so I haven't gone yet by myself, and all my friends are lame, and they won't go with me. Except for old Greg. We should go camping, old Greg. I know you're watching this. I know you like to go camping. Let's do it. Tickety Boo asked Gribbs, do you think war with Iran is inevitable? Nothing is inevitable. But yeah, we're inevitable. There are 2 hallmarks of authoritarian fascism in history. One is the curtailing of civil liberties and the scapegoating of rhetorically demonized populations internally within the fascist society, and foreign wars of aggression externally. And basically these things amount to the same thing, which is that an enemy is needed to fuel the passion and the hate, frankly, of the fascist society. Interestingly, we have a leader whose very existence is tied to his power in ways that have never really, well, I don't know about that. That might be a little bit of a stretch. But, for example, Pol Pot or Pinochet, these guys, they existed for power. Donald Trump obviously exists for power, but also if he loses his office, he's going to prison. He has already telegraphed his moves back when Obama was president by saying, wouldn't it be interesting if Obama went to war with Iran to avoid losing the election? And I think that is very specifically what's going to happen. We will, somewhere between 300 and 100 days before the election, my guess, I don't make predictions anymore because I'm tired of being wrong. So I hope I'm wrong about this. My guess would be that we will have troops on the ground fighting in Iran because that would give Trump the historical election bump that presidents get, or the polling bump, popularity bump that presidents get when we go to war. It's worth pointing out that a war with Iran would not look like war with Iraq or Afghanistan insofar as they were asymmetrical wars. Basically, we went in and kicked everybody's asses, and then the hard part was keeping their asses kicked over the next decade. And that was where insurgencies came from and roadside bombs and all that stuff. This will be much more symmetrical because even though Iran's military is not in the class with us or Russia, they are a very powerful military and they have some of the roughest terrain in the world. There will be no invasion. There will be no successful invasion. It will not be like Iraq where we sit around on the Kuwait border and somebody says, okay, go, and 3 weeks later we pull down the statue of the Ayatollah. That's not in the cards. All of that is to say, even though the House has repealed the ongoing authorization for the use of military force for the president that has been in place since 2001 after 9/11, so 18 years later they've repealed this authorization. The Senate has yet to repeal it, and the House, I think, is going to attach it to a budget bill. So there might be a government shutdown over the president's ability to declare, well, he can't declare war, but we haven't declared war since World War II. So I don't know. That will be telling. If McConnell decides to block this repeal in the Senate, that will telegraph to those of us who are watching Donald Trump's intentions. But I think that it's pretty clear what his intentions are. I don't like to end on a note like that, but I just got summoned. I got to go. Thank you for watching, and keep the ends out for the ties that bind. So much cool stuff coming up on the channel. Go check it out on Instagram as well, at Gribley's Folly, and I will see you same time, same spot. Actually, it might not be the same time. I don't know. I'll see you sometime. And actually, to be honest, I did really consider, again, calling it a mental health day today. So I'll either pre-record next Sunday's Antisocial, at a time that works, or I might call it in, right? We might have to do like a Tuesday night Antisocial or something like that, because weekends during wedding season for a photographer get really, really busy. Anyway, thank you for watching. Ends out, ties bind. See you later. Keep safe.